officially welcome everybody to um, the webinar dealing with and surviving the supply chain issues. We have a great lineup for you today of industry experts and stakeholders all throughout this continuum to be able to give you guys some high-level information, but then also hopefully give you some little tricks or little strategies to deal with these the disruptions that you are all dealing with. I know I can speak for everyone, and they will probably reiterate this, but we're very sorry that we're going through this, and we're very thankful that you, as food service directors and administrators in the school districts, are doing everything that you can to feed children. And we want to, number one, express our gratitude with that, and we also want to be a resource as much as possible. So if there are any areas where we can help, we encourage you guys to please reach out to the HPS staff or the Gordon Food Service staff, just to be able to help alleviate any of the issues that you guys are having, and be able to provide as much relief as we can. So without further ado, I will turn this over to Nancy LaFave. And Nancy is a food service director in Escanaba, Michigan, as you can see from her bio. But she also serves as the chairperson of the Great Lakes Consortium. And it's really from that group that the idea of this call was born. And so I wanted her just to give a quick overview and just a little insight on how she's dealing with these issues in her district. Nancy, take it away.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, everyone, welcome to this. I hate to say that we have to have this type of a webinar, but I think it's going to be a great webinar. I'm the chair for the GLC board, and on our last board call, we as a board sat there discussing how is it that we can help our membership and other directors around Michigan to make them feel as if they're not alone, is one thing, and then how to deal with some of these kind of crises that we're facing. And the board, thought we need to have meetings, we need to have all the stakeholders, we need the school districts behind us, we need to understand what the distributors and the brokers, the manufacturers, the drivers, what everyone's challenges are to get food to our district so we can feed kids. What used to be such a simple concept has kind of turned into this step by step each week. I described it to my staff. It's like Christmas morning when the truck comes. You open the cooler door, what are you going to get, and what's there, and what product came, and so every delivery is an excitement. So with that, our board said, you know what, we need to kind of figure out how to do this, and our friends at HPS stepped up, and Kevin said that he would organize it for us. And we want to be able to give people a kind of an overview of what's going on and how we at every level can help each other out and make things run smooth for the school year. For instance, we put a letter out in our district telling the families and the parents what's going on, and trying to tell them to be patient. And that letter came from a couple other districts in the state of Michigan and passed it along to the next group and passed it along to the next group, and so that we all were able to, anyone that needed it can put this letter out. And so it's teamwork like that we need to continue moving forward and communicate the best we can and work together. And that being said, I don't want to take up a lot of time. I want to be able to give the presenters all the time they need. There'll be questions answered at the end. If anyone has them, please put them in the chat box because everyone should be muted. And after this webinar is done, if you have questions for anybody on this call, the emails are on the screen right now. Please reach out to anyone. We all want to work together to make this this happen for the school year. We don't want to point fingers at each other. We want to be able to work together as a whole and get kids fed. So I think the first presenter, Kevin, I'm going to turn it over to.
Yep, turn it over to Spencer from Tyson Foods to represent our the food manufacturing side of this business.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. Welcome to everybody. Just want to let you know a little bit about myself. My name is Spencer Armstrong. I'm the National Director of K-12 Sales for Tyson Foods. So I handle the whole nation. And I've been here at Tyson for 25 years, and this is the worst I've ever seen, the supply chain issue. So, what we're kind of seeing right now is, in one of the laws of motion, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And what we're seeing right now over time is that reaction to everything that happened in the pandemic. So, we all know why we're here. I mean, labor shortages, all the ports are backed up, can't get product off those. The driver shortages are terrible. Inflation is just, 20, 30-year highs. And then, we've had all the government stimulus, that effect is really a big part of it too. So, our business usually is very predictable and repetitive and predictable. We get the bid season coming up, and then we see about how much diversions we have and all that. And so we build in the summer months to where we think we need to be to hit that late summer load in. But this year, with our retail demand was 20 to 25% higher than pre-pandemic areas. So we had to share a little bit of that build up with our retail brethren. We got a pretty good build, but once the pandemic hit, our business went, it was very unpredictable. So, this past summer, what we did, or two summers ago, we've had a good build, and then COVID hit and all the schools closed down. And, we were stuck with a lot of inventory. So it's that game that you play of how much inventory do you have to build on the front end. And it was hard. So one of some of the things that we couldn't predict was, number one was the demand from the waiver for the free meals. We just didn't know. We're not getting too much intel on that. And so that's had a huge impact on the supply. Another thing we couldn't predict was what were our competitors going to do. You've seen a lot of distributors and competitors just, either scale way back or really get out of the business in some instances. So we didn't want to do that. But the other issue that we have is, we are a customer as well. And, we have our vendor supply issues. If packaging doesn't show up or ingredients don't show up, we can't run product. And I sit probably about 20 feet from our operations folks in our poultry side, and every day it's something new for them, and they think they're going to run it and they have to change their schedule. So it's crazy out there. Some of the things that we're doing to try to help the cause is, we are producing as much as we can, and we're also, for K-12, and we're trying to run our products in fewer plants, because the more plants you run, then just getting the product out the door is a little bit harder. So we've reduced the number of plants that we've run our K-12 business in. The other thing that we've done is we've reduced slow moving SKUs. Why slow moving SKUs? It's important because you don't, when you have to change over from one product to the next product, that takes a long time. You got to clean, you got to change machinery out and all that other stuff. So if we can run product, it really helps the supply chain. We did get with Kevin a while ago. We looked at your list of what all they buy, and we took a look at that, and that really kind of helped us form as a company, what we're trying to run on a daily basis. So I appreciate Kevin's help on that. Other things we're doing is we've moved pretty much all non-K-12 items out of our K-12 plants, and we've made K-12 a very big priority in our company. A big one that we've had is Tyson Foods has implemented a vaccine mandate corporate wide. So come tomorrow, Any office worker has to be fully vaccinated. Come November 1, all of our truck drivers, all of our line, everybody is going to have to be fully vaccinated. So what that is going to do is it's just going to help with our sick time, because every time in a plant that stuff just spreads. And so with fully vaccinated people, we feel like that's really going to help on our labor issues as well. We have had a really high acceptance rate of the vaccine. At first, we didn't think we'd get there, but it's pretty high, and we're very, very pleased with that. Let me see what else we've got. Oh, we've also, two other things. We've reallocated some of our production hours and played with how our shifts run. And so what we're trying to do is maximize how much production we get without putting too much burden on each line employee. And hopefully that'll attract some labor to us as well too. And then we are basically investing millions of dollars on trying to expand our capacity, and also we're trying to do automation as well too, because when people don't show up, if it's automated, it doesn't matter if they show up or not. A couple things that Kevin asked me, hey, what can you guys do to help out? The first thing I'm going to say is please don't buy in or hoard. We all saw what happened with toilet paper whenever we went to the store. And, we only have a certain amount of inventory, and we only have a certain amount of production each week. And if everybody, we're all in this together, if everybody starts ordering and piling up, that supply is going to run out. Any intel or forecast you can give us, please do. That helps us out tremendously. Another way that you can help is try to find more ways to use one product, okay? Since we have limited some of our SKUs, if you can get one product that we know we can provide pretty well, then if you can use that in 3 or 4 recipes and different types, please use that. That helps, and I know it helps with your storage as well too. And then lastly, just use manufacturers' resources, websites, be active in in going out there and checking with these folks and checking the websites. There's a lot of tools, a lot of packaging, a lot of things like that. So, Kevin, that's all I had for today, and I think I might turn it over to Drew next.
Well, thank you everyone for giving us some time today. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to what we have to say. I'm Drew Clair. I'm the National Sales Manager for Pactiv Evergreen. For those that don't know who Pactiv Evergreen is, we're one of the largest, if not the largest, packaging manufacturer in North America, and a huge partner of HPS as well as Gordon Food Service. So I want to take you through just a few key topics today. I want to talk a little bit about the state of our packaging industry. I'm going to talk about some of the service challenges we've been having. You'll be surprised how much parallels there are to the food side that Spencer just walked us through. And then I'll go through a little bit more specifics about the education sector and how we think we can work a little bit better together moving forward. So no different than the food side, we've seen a tremendous spike in demand in our industry. If you think about the pivot that you've seen restaurants take with takeout and delivery being a much more primary part of their business, that's put a tremendous and unexpected strain on demand in the food packaging space. We usually expect to see somewhere around 1%, 2%, 3% growth in a normal non-COVID year. And we're seeing growth in packaging at more than 20%, so a 10-fold increase versus what we're normally prepared for. And some categories like containers are up almost 40%, which is just absolutely tremendous and nothing we've ever seen before. We're definitely anticipating this growth to continue at least through next summer. We think there might be some relief coming after that, but that's mostly going to be due to manufacturers having time to catch up to that demand. So we do expect this to stick around for quite some time. So talking more specifically about how that demand increase has impacted service, labor shortages, I'm sure we've all experienced this and probably all talking about it at work every day, no matter what industry you're in. But when you add that to the unprecedented demand, it's been a huge challenge, especially in a manufacturing setting. When you have folks that are not showing up to work unexpectedly, it creates a lot of volatility in what you're going to produce that day. You go in thinking you're going to make X number of cases, and when we had a week where over 500 people didn't show up to our facilities, and you end up producing a lot less than that. Very hard to predict. Then you add in other manufacturing challenges like creating the right social distancing in a manufacturing facility where typically people are working in very close quarters, and having to change those operations leads to lower output in a lot of cases. And then you also have COVID testing, you have cleaning procedures if you were to have a positive test. And again, it all comes down to more downtime and less time to run the product. I know a lot of people are probably thinking, why don't you just buy more machines? And just like everything else right now, we've got huge lead times to get new equipment, new manufacturing equipment from overseas, but it's certainly something that very early in the pandemic, we started to put into motion, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And upstream, we have to buy raw materials to make our packaging products. So we buy plastic resins, we buy aluminum, we buy paperboard, and all those facilities are having the same labor challenges. Many of those facilities were in areas hit by severe weather events over the last 2 years, between the Texas freeze issue, as well as hurricanes hitting the Southeast. Took down several of those facilities for a very long time. And they're also, of course, experiencing a ton of increased demand. So what's Pactiv Evergreen doing about this? So we're an industry leader, and we take that very seriously. And we've invested over $13 million just in the back half of this year for labor incentives. So we've had a really robust sign-on bonus program, really strong referral bonuses, retention bonuses for employees that stay with good attendance records for a certain period of time can get massive bonuses. And then we've even given incentives to each of our facilities to hit certain productivity goals to give them even more bonus dollars. And that's starting to really bear fruit. We've seen more hiring in the past month than we saw in the prior 5 months combined. So I do think we're starting to see that turn a little bit, but those are new employees, and it's going to take a lot of time to get them up to speed, get them trained, and get them to be as productive as long-standing employees. We've spent almost $100 million on ordering new equipment to allow us to grow into this new demand in the market, and we hope to see the benefits of that in early 2022. So that's very exciting, and hopefully allows us to respond a little faster. We've invested in new software to make sure that our logistics and warehousing processes are as efficient as possible. And then much like the Tyson story, we've tried to simplify our offering. When you have a manufacturing line that's capable of running 10 different products, every time you change between those products, you lose time. And sometimes it's 6 or 8 hours. Sometimes it can be a couple of days to change between those. So by reducing the number of products that we actually manufacture, we're actually able to manufacture many more individual units or pieces. In some instances, we've been able to provide GFS, for example, with 50% more product just by simplifying the offering on the same line than we did in 2019. So that's helped us get a lot more output really quickly. So now tying this back to the education sector, this is kind of what we're seeing and what we're hearing from some of our data partners. Obviously, we're back to in-person learning. Only about 2% of students seem to be full-time remote still. 90 to 95% of schools are open compared to 75% last year at the same time. And another really big impact is the subsidies that we're seeing for school lunches from the government means even more kids are going to school planning to eat at school versus bringing a brown bag lunch. And that in some areas has increased the demand for school lunches 15 to 20% versus 2019, which again goes back to that story of a huge spike in demand. So finally, what can we do together? First and foremost, being open to alternative suitable solutions. We're not going to have every item that everybody wants on a given day. And if we get out in front of those challenges and identify what the correct A, B, C, D possible options are, get pricing set up, make sure we get a forecast in, send samples, test products, so that when we find out something like a school lunch tray is not available, we already know that a paper plate or a paper bowl or something like that will work, and it's hopefully a product we're in better supply on. So I'd really encourage everyone to think about what those viable alternatives are. Communication between Pactiv Evergreen and distributors, especially GFS, and working with HPS to talk about what service challenges we're going to experience. The more we can get in front of these things, the better off we're going to be. And also making sure we've got the right product in the right place at the right time. It doesn't do us any good to ship 45 days of supply to one location and have everyone else out of product when we could have spread that out evenly. So we're doing a lot of work every single week to make sure we're optimizing where product goes so that we're not sitting on stuff in one place that's needed somewhere else. Any predictive forecasting that we can get from school districts to let us know when there's a change or an increase in demand coming on their side because of a change in their operation. The more advance notice we get, the more time we have to change manufacturing. And then where possible, any safety stock a school can hold. We're in a new time of not necessarily getting what you placed on your order yesterday isn't necessarily going to show up tomorrow. So the more inventory that schools can hold to absorb some of those shortages was certainly helpful. And then just like Spencer was saying, We have great resources on the Pactiv sales team that are in every geography for everyone on this call that can be there to suggest alternatives, send samples, work on pricing, and you can find those folks by working with your GFS person, CDS, or anyone at HPS, and we'll definitely get someone in touch with you. So a lot of similarities between the food side and the non-food side right now, but I very much appreciate the time. Thank you very much. I'll throw it back to Kevin.
Thanks, Stu. Great information. Our next presenter is Gordon Food Service.
All right, great, thank you. I'm going to start out for Dorothy and Dorothy's going to finish a little bit. My role with Gordon Food Service is a regional education manager. I've just worked with K-12, and I've been with Gordon's 27 years now. So I'm going to kick it off. It's amazing the similarities with the stories that Spencer and Drew just shared. You know, labor is the root cause of all the issues that face the hundreds of companies that provide food for students today. No company has been exempt. Nationally, we've seen other distributors that have had short-term shutdowns and some that have moved out of the K-12 business altogether. Gordon Food Service is making decisions that are necessary to keep us fully dedicated and involved in the K-12 segment. We're looking to maximize every touch point that we have internally and externally. Each of our divisions is working to keep the products flowing and our trucks moving. We're looking at raising minimum orders in certain situations, moving delivery days, changing delivery routes, and we're not accepting some new business across our footprints in different areas at different times. Everything is being evaluated in order to reduce the strain on our business. However, our biggest concern remains is our people, keeping them healthy and effective. And there's going to be times where you're not going to hear back from your inside salesperson or CDS. Please understand that we're doing our best during these unprecedented times. So I'm going to jump in now and kind of go through a few points, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dorothy. So just placing orders in our system, and I think we've probably talked about this with most of you in maybe one-on-one or in different situations, but order early. Our system will grab any orders that are in there really early in the morning, midnight I've heard, or 1 o'clock, and transmit them for your delivery day. So if you normally order on Monday, and if you can have it in maybe Sunday night, then it would transmit and allow our team to react to it a little bit better. View your out of stocks and identify those which are absolute must-haves, and let your person know that you're working with, whether it's your IST or your salesperson. And if you have the ability, review and fix your own edits as much as possible. Every little bit helps. And we realize you're spending a lot of time doing this, and that's all our team has been doing frequently. I wanted to throw this one out there. There are some order notifications, and I thought if I was a food service director, I'd like this one, a text reminder. You can set this inside your system to just give you a reminder that we have, that it's time to place your order. And there's some other things in here too with receiving ETA delivery windows. This is the main thing I wanted to share today. We're rolling this out gradually across our footprints. Each division is kind of approaching it a little bit differently, but we're pretty excited about it. We've had some great feedback from customers and our sales team. This is a daily inventory. So if you're going to place your order on a certain day, we're going to send you roughly the top 800 items that are in your distribution center that are relevant to K-12. And the thing I like most about this is that it's a pretty comprehensive list of items that schools normally purchase, but it's filterable. So if you're looking for a 16-inch pizza, you can go into this form and filter on the product subgroups and look at those items that are available in there. And I'll go through this a little bit right here just so you see what's on here. We have the item code and the description, of course, and then the product subgroups. A little bit different. We have a lot of different names and a lot of different categories that we use. And I'll have the vendor name, and that will show the on-hand inventory from about 6 o'clock that morning. It's a static report, so it's not updated throughout the day. It's updated daily, though. It will show you what we have on order, and then it shows you what the first PO, how much is on the first PO. And that first item that you look at, the Scooby-Doo snacks, we have a 96 on order, and the first PO is also has 96. So that's all we have currently. And that's due in on 10/4. And that allows us some flexibility to say, you know, we just had a customer notify us that they want 100 cases. So if we can, and there's a lot of flexibility in the system these days, we would notify a manufacturer in that process and say, hey, we need another 100 cases. You may see a blank number in there, like on the next line. That just shows that that item is not available in your distribution center. And we also show all the commodity products, not all, but most of the commodity products in there. And some of them you may have access to if you have pounds with that company, or if it's just a USDA brown box item like some of these. We are using this a lot for our team to look at what's on the first PO and what's on order. If you look at the Big Daddy's Pizza there, we have 134 on hand at this distribution center, 900 on order, and 60 coming in. We're also looking at things like how much usage, the forecast on that. And we're trying to help our buyers in those situations say, that 60 cases might not be enough. We need more. And communicating that information back to our CDS team is just critical from our standpoint. I think that's all I had on there. Kevin, did you have any questions? I know you were asking a few about this earlier.
No, I just commend you guys. I think this is a wonderful report. And again, it has, different levels of distribution at the different divisions. And we have certainly a lot of different members throughout our footprint on the phone today. But work with your CDS, because, the idea is you get this in the morning of the day that you place your order. So it really gives you or your team that ability to say, okay, my chicken tenderloin was out of stock. And you can, as Carl said, sort that down by chicken tenderloin, and you can say, okay, 131,901, there's 430 there. So is that an acceptable sub? And make that decision, and then place those orders. Because I think what we hear is a big part of the frustration is you place your order, you know that they're out of stock, you place a substitute, and then you don't have any visibility if that's out of stock. And so the cycle continues. This can just help in that scenario. And as Carl said, and I concur, the members that we're hearing from are just saying great things about this tool. And I really commend your team for putting that together and being so nimble to and dedicated to getting it to each of the customers the day they order.
Yep, and it's going to roll out gradually across the footprint, so you may not have it yet, but it should be coming your way soon. And again, as Drew mentioned, we're hoping that people don't hoard on this. If you see 120 cases in there and you normally order 10 and you figure, well, I'm going to order 50 this time just to cover, please be aware that it is affecting other people. And if you look at the JTM macaroni and cheese there, that 120 cases we have, we're already past that due date on this. So that product got delayed in transportation somehow. So we're not getting any more. If you take much more than what you would normally take, it does affect a lot of other customers. So I am going to turn it over to Dorothy. And Dorothy, I'm sure you have a few thoughts.
Dorothy.
Okay, now that I'm off mute.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so what we want, I just really want to say is just thank you for everything. We understand the challenges presented by the supply chain disruption, as Spencer called out and Drew called out, and what we have been doing is trying to come up with tools like Carl went ahead and explained to help all the food service directors out there the best that we can. As we've heard, we know that to normalize the supply chain is many months out, but as we get to that normalization, we know that things are going to increase and get better. One of the big issues we've had at Gordon Food Service is just even carriers making their appointments. We've had a lot of missed appointments. So what they have done is they've hired more staff to start calling all these carriers and making sure that they are going to make it on time. And if not, they have somebody on the dock, and they're coming. So in their spot. So we're kind of almost doing that airlines kind of thing where we're kind of overbooking. So we don't have those missed windows, so that PO that should have came on 9/24 then hopefully if he missed his appointment, then there's another one coming right behind it. So there are many things at Gordon Food Service where we are working through, changing, being flexible to make sure that we get through this and all of us get through this on the other side. So we promise to continue to work hard and to help as much as we can. We are extremely grateful for every single one of you and appreciate everything that you're doing. And if you need anything, please reach out to Carl, myself, your inside sales rep, your education specialist, and anybody on the HPS team, plus any of the manufacturers. We're all in this together and we're going to get through it. So just to thank you again for everything.
Thank you, guys. And again, and we know there's a lot of frustration out there and there isn't a silver bullet, but I will say, and even Leanne in the chat said that that tool has been a great help. Thank you. And if we can get a message to the group and just have some understanding is that there is so much work being done behind the scenes. We can't begin to illustrate all of the work that is being done behind the scenes, but I will share one anecdote with you that maybe you've heard before, but since Drew from Pactiv is here, I think it's a great anecdote, and there's tons of examples of this. You know, Pactiv identified early, partly because of that changeover, their demand for the black foamware has really been out of this world crazy. And so, you know, they worked with Gordon Food Service to say, you know, what would help us is if we could keep running black and make those trays that, you know, we all know is white and our kids have seen as white, but what would it look like if we could start producing those trays in black to help us have some efficiency to get more product out. So that's just one small example of how the team at Gordon Food Service works with the manufacturers and says, yes, if this is going to get us more product, it's not perfect, but let's introduce that black tray in a seamless way in the same item code that you have for the white tray, and it allowed them to get X amount of more cases. I don't know what that number is, but it just helped everybody to be a more efficient and more you know, more productive. And again, there are so many of those examples, and I just want to thank Gordon Food Service and the manufacturers, all the manufacturers that are here and not here, for their willingness to everybody, you know, get outside the box and really do what they can. And again, knowing that there's not a silver bullet and we are letting people down, but there's a lot of work to be able to get the food and the non-food products there that all of us need to be able to run our operations on a daily basis. And so I think this is a great segue. We're going to move into the State Department. We're fortunate to have Garrick Howell here from the state of Kentucky, the Department of Agriculture. And we've asked Garrick to talk a little bit about USDA foods and how that supply chain has been impacted and how that can potentially help your operations. And at the same time, give a little perspective on how your Department of Education may be able to help you in your state, as he works very closely with that team in Kentucky.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. I don't know how. I don't have any silver bullets either. We're getting close to Halloween, and all those wolf men are popping up. So I wish I had some silver bullets handy, but I don't. So that must be why they're hard to come by in the supply chains the challenges that we're running into. My name is Garrick Howell. I'm with Kentucky Department of Agriculture. Work with USDA Foods here in the state. We are a state where the agencies are split for National School Lunch Program Administration. So the Kentucky Department of Education handles our child nutrition components here in Kentucky. So while I'm not quite as much of an expert I wouldn't say an expert at all on child nutrition as it pertains, but I do have a little experience working closely with them. As Kevin said, we've spent several years here really improving our relationship between our two agencies, and I say improving it, not that it was terrible, but making it much better as we go. So I'm going to try to cover some of that part too here in the next couple of minutes. So, and they told me about 5 to 7 minutes, and I grew up, and my dad was a Baptist preacher, so I'll do my best to keep it short and keep it brief and concise. But in all seriousness, we are in USDA foods, or colloquially known as commodities, a lot of places. We are a little bit shielded from some of the supply chain issues that come about that you all are experiencing, that are being experienced in the commercial side, that the GFSs and these other manufacturers are dealing with, the distribution warehouses, manufacturers, all that. We get a little bit of cushion from the buy power, from the AMS, USDA. AMS is the Ag Marketing Service at USDA, and they handle purchasing. The USDA foods, those were purchased by contract months and months ago. So as far as acquiring the product, we're not running into as much of a headache because those have been in place for many months at this point. However, there are some issues that we're running into within the program. So, as you all know, labor is an issue. Drivers are an issue. So whether the vendors have the product ready to go, there's a chance that they can't get it actually transported where it needs to go. Most of the time, we're dealing with that in the form of delays, which, I understand they can be a pain in the neck, but at the same time, sometimes better late than never. That may not help when you need to feed a kid tomorrow, when you need applesauce cups coming in on time so you can get those to a child and get it on their plate. But, at the same time, we're sort of like, well, we could be not getting it at all. So we try to be grateful in that regard. We're not running into as many cancellations as we thought yet. Remember, it's only September of the school year. We are just completing our third month of the school year: July, August, September. I mean calendar, official school month. We're not seeing that as badly, but we do know that that's on the table as time goes on. There are difficult choices being made across the country, and some of those difficult choices sometimes are to maybe not fill a USDA foods contract by a vendor and to fill a commercial sale because the profit margin may be better. And it kind of sounds not great to say out loud, but at the same time, these businesses are trying to work and manage their business as best they can too. So it makes it challenging, but at the same time, we understand their perspective. We're all having trouble, and we're all trying to make our way the best we can. And so we try to give them, the grace that we can in those situations, but we hope that those things don't come about and become really a widespread issue that we're seeing. So again, we're kind of insulated there with USDA foods to an extent. Where we're really seeing a lot of impact in the supply chain is with inventory management. Again, brown box is not as extreme. We know that warehouses, distributors, that they're dealing with all those labor shortages, all those driver shortages, the folks that are out sick, all those different kinds of things. I know Dorothy and their team at GFS, they can attest to all those things. It's been a nightmare for them too. Just moving the food sometimes can be a challenge, but we are seeing the biggest impact in USDA foods, at least in Kentucky. I do think this is pretty consistent across the country, is that inventory management for processing pounds has become a very big part of my job, and looking at how much are we using, how much are we, how many pounds do we have as a state at a manufacturer, and how many have we used so far? How many months of inventory do we have on hand? And of course, there are all kinds of issues that can crop up with that as the manufacturers run out to this issue, run into their issues. Changing lines over, trying to run their lines, trying to get product delivered, trying to get product out the door, trying to get product to warehouse. The warehouse, the issues that they have, asking for full truckloads of product and getting half truckloads of product. Ingredient, back to the manufacturers, them ordering ingredient and getting half or less or none of what they asked for. Well, if they can't, if they're having trouble getting the ingredient that they need to make the product, then obviously they're going to have trouble getting it into the warehouse. And if they're having trouble getting into the warehouse, you can't buy it, you can't order it, and that hinders your ability as a recipient agency or as a co-op to draw down the pounds that you all have available to you. That compounds with USDA is very involved in the process at the moment, and they're keeping an eye on our inventories as states. They are not concerned with school district A being out of pounds. They just know that Kentucky has, 12, let's say 12,000 pounds of this product, and we're using 1,000 pounds a month. Well, then they figure that we're on pace to use up all of our inventory on time, so we don't need more. And that's fair. That analysis is fair. The data supports that analysis that USDA is having. But they are using data to drive where inventory is being sent, who it's being sent on behalf of, what states. They're not drilling down to the recipient agency level. They're not drilling down to the co-op level, because that is our responsibility as the states, is to manage that within our state. So that inventory management piece has become the biggest component. Manufacturers are having to use data to present justification to get new loads of USDA foods. That's an issue that they're running into. That's an issue that we are trying our best as states to be good partners with the manufacturers, to give them the data that we can and to provide the support that we can, so that inventory is eventually sent in for as new loads of commodity from USDA. All of this circles back to driving on the point of, and I know you guys are sick of hearing the word forecasting, but the sooner, the earlier, the more that you are capable of communicating. And I know you guys have so much on your desks right now, but the sooner and more clearly that you're able to communicate changes in your forecasting and changes in your needs. And we know that stuff comes at the last minute sometimes. But if you've got any lead time, the manufacturers, the warehouses, HPS, co-ops, we can all use it. We can all use it. The lead time, if you've got it, and we would very much appreciate it. So that's the big areas where USDA foods are being impacted, as far as things look in Kentucky, and I think most across the country. And I do want to encourage you all, and I'm not specifically certain with what the relationship looks like between your school district and the Department of Education or the Child Nutrition Office in your state. I know there's different dynamics across the country. We have a wonderful relationship between our RAs and our Department of Education and Child Nutrition. We have a wonderful relationship with our RAs in Kentucky. And that may not be the case everywhere, and I understand that. But as much as you can, please, please, please stay as much in communication as you can with your child nutrition offices in your state. There are lots, I know there's gobs of waivers, over 100 of them that are out there. There are things being announced every day, like yesterday, $3 billion in support for the program. So please, by all means, stay in touch with them, and I'll shut up and move on down the line.
Thanks, Kim. Appreciate that. Hey, I just want the group to know too, and obviously we haven't touched much on this, but we know that prices are escalating in some areas, and that's a concern. And if you have to buy off bid, that's a concern. But I just got a text message from our state director here in Michigan, and that money that Garrick talked about, 1.5 billion is going to be dedicated towards the schools. And if I'm reading this correctly, we don't know all of this because it's hot off the press. 500 million of it will be used for additional commodities, and 1 billion will be sent to state agencies to distribute to schools to help them with the escalating costs. So just fantastic news coming out of USDA. Thank you, Garrick. And I think without further ado, we will move on to our next presenter, which is our superintendent stakeholder, Brian Keim.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Well, hey, that's some great news hot off the press there. Thanks, you made my day, Kevin, with that information on the USDA. That's fantastic. And to our other presenter too, hey, I like the black trays, by the way. I think they've been a nice improvement to our lunchroom. The black trays are great. I actually prefer them. That's what I eat my lunch every day in our school cafeteria. And I like to eat with the kids. I like to support our food staff. And I will say they and you and everybody involved is doing a great job of helping us manage this. Our food service director, her name is Cinnamon. How perfect is that? That's her given birth name, food service director named Cinnamon. She was telling me just today, she said, hey, we survived COVID. We served over 50,000 meals to kids on a daily pickup basis and delivery during the COVID shutdown and remote learning. She said, this current crisis is 10 times as difficult as what we dealt with then, not even close. So just a little bit about Lakers. We're a small school. I say small, we're about 1,000 in enrollment. We're located up in the tip of the thumb of Michigan here. Elkton, Pigeon, Bayport are the towns we represent. We are about 50 to 55% free and reduced lunch, which has changed over the last 10 to 15 years, probably tripled actually from what we were back then. So it's a changing demographic. But we're a proud little district here, and we have a great food staff that takes really good care of our kids. And so we will weather the storm. I'm just going to share a couple of things that we have done to fight against this. Some of the things have already been suggested today by our other presenters, but I'll reinforce those a little bit from the school side and from my position in administration. We've been combing the community for workers. That's perhaps one of our biggest detriments, but thankfully we were proactive, and we're training and recruiting subs early on so that we do have some additional help here when we need it most. On the worst days, our food service director has brought her own husband in who has seasonal work and is able to come in once in a while and give a hand. But having extra workers is probably our biggest challenge, even more so than the supply chain right now, frankly. Regarding supplies, we have been multi-sourcing, and frankly, I talked with HPS and asked them where Gordon Food Service School, is it okay? We have your blessing to kind of look around and get things where we can. Yes, of course we do. We know you're loyal. And so we've been able to do that a little bit. We haven't had to stray too far from GFS, fortunately, but we have gotten a few supplies in different places. One of those areas is local. We have Amish cooperatives around here. We have some Mennonite food stores and things, and we've been able to do some kind of farm to table resourcing through those types of commodities, fruits and vegetables, even some meats and things. And we've been creative with our menus. Our food service director said, look, we'll always have food. It just may not look like what's on the menu, and it may not look like what was served last week. But we'll never get to the place where we're, serving bags of crackers as entrees, as we've heard, maybe a few districts have had to do in higher population areas. So we're thankful for that. She shared another trick with me. Something that we're doing is making sure there's early order settings. So a day in advance of our next order date, she's getting on and putting in her orders and then just waiting for midnight to dawn, and she gets alarms. Sometimes she'll climb out of bed because she says this stuff keeps her up at night anyhow, and check and just see what orders have filled. She was thrilled to see we just got a 2-week supply of trays, which we've been really short on. Another thing, speaking of trays, is that we've been conserving the materials that we do have. I noticed that donuts or some kind of a breakfast pastry was served yesterday morning in a half of a container, and you can see where it had been cut or torn in half just to make it last. And we're not above those kind of things. I've seen different kinds of trays, you know, your circular compartment dishes instead of your rectangular school trays. One of the most creative things that we've talked about doing is actually opening our buildings to more of an open campus format over lunch. And that may not seem like a big deal to a lot of you on the call. You may live in town centers or, you know, areas where food is readily accessible to kids, and you allow them to go to open campus. But in a rural area like ours, where kids have to get in their cars and travel a distance, open campus it's awarded only once a week, and that's only to seniors on Fridays as a really special privilege. But in this time, we have considered opening some of those options up just to provide a little bit of relief on our food service staff and our supplies. What can we do as school administrators in a difficult time like this to help? One of the things we can do is just simply lend a listening ear. Our food service director and her staff, they do their very best to keep a smile on their face. We know that, we appreciate that. And so in times like this, when you see that stress mounting, it's important that we as frontline leaders just take time to listen. Today I was able to run back in the kitchen with her. She just wanted to show me a few things that she was doing to make the dollar stretch, to make the food stretch, to be creative, and just taking those few minutes does seem to mean a lot. Walking through the kitchen, continue to support the food program as best we can. Another thing is to advocate to our school board for extra spending, and fortunately our board doesn't hesitate to put dollars where it's needed. We've worked hard in the last 2 years to overhaul our food service program and make it a source of pride. And this has really hit us hard, especially our employees in that area, because they want to do such a great job for our students. And this hurts them not to be able to do the great things they were accustomed to doing. But our school board is very supportive. And sometimes the superintendent or other administrators need to convey what the situation is exactly to the board, just to keep them apprised and to make sure that they understand that extra resources may be needed. The last thing that we do is we use social media across our district to accomplish two things. First, to communicate to our stakeholders that there indeed are shortages. You hear about it in the news from other sectors. You've probably heard your kid talk about lunch at home, at school too, and indeed we are no different. So just to explain the shortage issue, how we're dealing with it, and then to take those opportunities as well to praise our employees and let our stakeholders know that these things are largely beyond our control and that our great employees are doing the very best that they can to keep providing for the kids. So those are some things that on the school side have worked for us. I'd love to hear off air from anybody out there in the school realm, what other creative ideas you are using and have been successful with. And you can get my contact information, and I'd love to talk more with you afterwards. That's all I've got, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Such great insight. And I just love the idea about using your administration and letting them be advocates for you, because we know they do care, and it's a great sense of pride, and they oftentimes are a first line of defense when it comes to families and parents and and things like that. So our last presenter today is Jen Rex, and she was just going to bring it home for us. She is a food service director in Ohio, and she's going to really give us just little nuggets and great ideas to help your staff and to help the situation that you guys are all in. I am going to share my screen.
Okay, thank you for having me this afternoon, and I'm just going to be real quick about best practices I have found that has helped me navigate since about the beginning of August. Go ahead, Kevin. You can go next slide. So ordering strategy. I'm sure there are things that I'm saying that directors across the country are already doing. So I order early. My delivery days are Wednesdays. All the orders in my district have to be placed by Fridays at 9 a.m. I find out Sunday evenings at about, early Monday mornings, about 1 a.m. I find out what items I'm not getting. What that allows me to do is get on my call, which step 2, I have a weekly set scheduled meeting with my sales rep from GFS. That gives us all day Monday up to 8 p.m. To find substitutes. I do have a GFS marketplace in my city, so I do use that when I need to. And the great thing GFS has done in the last week or so is putting together that spreadsheet the morning of that kind of gives us our substitutes of items we can search through, like the GFS rep had showed earlier. I make this my priority, and I set aside ample time, 2 to 2.5 days, honestly, of my week to make sure I'm handling it right and that I feel good about the products we're finding. Okay, next slide, Kevin. This just shows a snippet of once I know what items are coming into my district by Monday afternoons, the girls are receiving those items on Wednesday's trucks. I create a spreadsheet in Google Drive that tells my girls exactly what they're getting. Bosco sticks were out. I replaced with a Maxi 6. So when they're getting those deliveries, they're not overwhelmed with trying to figure out, this is not what I ordered. What is this supposed to be for? They get that by Tuesday mornings, which that gives them a whole day before their trucks arrive. You'll notice in red, I highlighted, if I substitute something that may change something important on a menu. We couldn't receive our turkey sausage links this last delivery, so I had to send a building pork. And I did read that to let them know that, of course, if we have students that cannot eat pork, they need to be aware of that's coming in. I do make a note that menu change does not mean decreased quality, and that priorities with students with allergies are important. So those are 2 things I really try to focus on as I'm navigating through substitutes, is that the allergies of our students are important, and that just because you're doing a menu change, it doesn't mean it has to change the quality of the food that we're providing the students. Next slide, Kevin.
Hold on.
Okay.
Why didn't it let me do that? There we
There
go.
it is.
Okay.
Communication, of course. Like the superintendent said earlier, my district leadership team has been aware from August the struggles that each building, each department has been having, and just even that they understand, that it's not that we're asking for help, but it's just that they need to be aware of the crisis mode that we're all operating in at this point. I notify key stakeholders in the district. So of course, school nurses, I may be serving a breakfast muffin and she has the carb count from the week before, and to let them know that, hey, that muffin may be a different muffin by the time it gets to that child, that they are to check directly with each item before providing those students with that food. And I did put that on our school nurses. We've notified parents with this snippet in the screenshot there about the shortages. And then of course our students, letting our students know with signage and with principals doing the announcements in the morning, so let them know that there has been a menu change. Next slide. The only other thing I have to say, it is in our mindset. I mean, obviously food service directors, we have really busy jobs, and this has taken, like I said, of a 5-day week, I spent about 2.5 days making sure that of my 12 buildings, everyone has what they need to put out a good, healthy meal. I don't deny what's happening. I've embraced it to know that this is what I've committed to have to do this school year. My attitude affects my staff. So obviously, if I'm stressed about the bun crisis or that I can't serve an all beef hot dog right now, that will affect my staff. So I'm trying to stay very positive, making their jobs easier. And I always have my worst case scenario in the back of my head, and I put that in writing. I think that's important at this time of year to be prepared that there could be, it could get worse before it does get better. And ultimately, if we don't have food, we can't operate school. There's two things that make schools operate. It's busing and food service. So if we did not have the food in a building to actually provide meals to 600, 700 students, we would not be able to operate that building. So I think putting something in writing to know, hey, what's my worst case scenario? Changing a menu, downsizing a menu, simplifying the menu, whatever it is you feel you may have to do. And I always put that in writing just so it's something that I have in the back of my head. That's really all I had. I think for most food service directors at this point, we've accepted that this is probably how our year is going to look, just like last year looked a little different. This year is all new challenges. So once it's accepted, and I can't thank GFS enough for trying to make our jobs as easy as it possibly can be at this time. So that's all I have, Kevin.
Thank you, Jen. That was great. I love the comment. Don't deny it, embrace it.
Yeah.
And there's such truth to that. From an HPS perspective, and I think this goes without saying, but I just did want to let everybody know on the phone, the USDA, I've said this a lot, along with the State Departments, I truly believe it's their finest hour, and they are really helping as much as they can. And so everybody probably knows this, but I just wanted to let you guys know from a procurement perspective, is that we at HPS have this emergency procurement in our solicitation, in our bid, and really emergency procurement is a built-in flexibility of federal procurement. So I think, as Brian said, if there are other sources that you guys can use, whether that's local, whether that's a farm, whether that's maybe an alternate supplier like Staples or Lowe's or something like that. Anybody that can help you, I encourage you guys to kind of go down that road as well, and know that you're protected from a reviewer standpoint. That's really, the message is that we're all in this together, and we just want to be supportive as a group and get through this. I cannot thank stakeholders and presenters that we had today too much. I think it's a lot of information to get in an hour. We went over a little bit, but I appreciate those that were able to stay on.